She said, I just tell you what, we're not going to be able to approve you.
She didn't even ask for our
No,
paperwork.
no.
Okay.
Wow.
I was blindsided.
They verified the information, but none of them were signed. So then we had to do it over. We did it about 3 times. Quite honestly, I think both of us were a little bit in shock and then also really discouraged.
But he was actually looking at me as he was asking the questions, started stamping some things.
Today's guests were rejected at their first Mexican consulate appointment.
But instead of giving up, they tried again, and this time they walked away with their temporary residency card in hand.
Welcome back to ANF Beyond. We're excited about this conversation because it's a real story of perseverance that a lot of people thinking about moving to Mexico will relate to.
Joining us today are Rosalyn and David from Southern California. They're preparing for retirement and planning their move to Mexico, but their path to residency was not exactly smooth.
We'll talk about what happened at the Las Vegas consulate, how they regrouped, and how they finally succeeded at San Diego and Baja. There are so many lessons in this story that can help you if you're about to start the visa process. All right, so good morning, Rosalyn. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
Hey guys.
We're doing great.
Doing amazing.
Yeah, well, we miss you. It's been a week since you were here staying with us, and we so enjoyed our week with you.
Yes.
Yeah, likewise. We were just looking at the pictures last night again and like, oh, that was so much fun.
It was kind of life-changing for us because it just gave us a better perspective of, what we're going to be doing in our future. It was, again, life-changing.
Well, you two have a really interesting story to share, and this is why we're so excited to talk to you. Besides the fact that we are missing you and just wanted to talk to you anyway. But your journey towards Mexican residency was not a straight line, and so we'll get into all of that. But even before we get into that, what even inspired you to start your journey towards Mexican residency?
So our son was in college and did a study abroad, actually in Spain.
In Spain.
And it's funny because we said, don't go over there and then not want to come back or something.
It was just a joke.
It was out there. We thought, what a great opportunity for us to go out and visit with him. And when we went there, just the lifestyle and all of that, we just fell in love. So fast forward, we thought, it would be, at some point it would be nice if we could figure out a way. So what we thought he might do, we actually found ourselves kind of feeling like we might do as well. But then we started looking into it. And quite frankly, for us in our stage of life and all of that right now, Spain's just too far. And so we started exploring just, what would be some other options for us in terms of areas where we might live. And interestingly enough, I mean, I'm the one that kind of does a lot of research all the time and all that, and just watching a lot of videos and all of that, and came across you guys. It was almost a year ago talking about, just Mexico and just the Latin culture. And that really resonated with me. And the other thing is that is kind of unique is as I've been investigating my family history, my grandfather on my mother's side and uncle and all, that family is from Guatemala. So it was really interesting for me to learn is listening to you that you, Francisco, are also from Guatemala. Then just watching and listening to you guys about your journey from California, like we are, and then the Mexican culture and all of that. It just really resonated with me. When my family moved from Guatemala to the States, migrated here, they wanted to embrace American citizenship. And so they felt like they shouldn't speak Spanish anymore, that they should just really fully acclimate and speak English only. So because of that, we've lost Spanish within our family. And we're here to reclaim our Spanish and to reclaim our heritage. Oh, and one other thing is when we came back from Spain, one of the things that David had decided was that he was like, let's learn Spanish. Let's really embrace it. So we've been working every day on our Spanish. And in fact, I just was in a Spanish class this morning. And so we said, you know what, it feels like that would be the nice place. And San Miguel has very much, from our understanding, a European Spain type of colonial type of environment. So that was kind of on my radar is why San Miguel. And then I shared with David and he was pretty much in agreement with all of that.
He does all the research, so all this research, getting excited. I'm like, okay. But when she sent me what she had found, it's like, okay, I'm really on board here.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. You guys basically started your journey towards residency right when we started our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
If you started following us about a year
About a
ago,
year ago, yeah.
we started on October 3rd, as a matter of fact. So
oh
almost
wow,
a year ago. Yeah,
And from
yeah.
that's awesome.
what she had sent to me, I thought you guys had this channel forever.
Right.
Again, that's what I assumed. So when I
I
had
did too.
heard that you'd only been on the YouTube channel for a year, it's like, wow. I mean, it's so professional. It's like veterans. They speak like veterans. Like they've done this. That's what the assumption was. So yeah, I was kind of blown away that it's only been a year.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it only has been. And the more we get into it, the more things we're trying, like this chat that we're having. So we'll see how the people accept this type of format versus what we usually do. What you're sharing today is something that a lot of people will be able to relate to. Not only people that are just starting their journey, but even people that have already gone through their journey that are interested to see how others did it and how things evolve over time. So I think this is going to be great.
Yep.
So you started your process. Tell us a little bit about how you prepared for the process of getting your residency and why you chose the Vegas consulate first to try there.
Sure. So, along that journey, I stumbled across another group that really helps Black women that are interested in moving abroad, called Exodus Summit. And they actually were able to help me to see like options or ways that you can look into other countries and to decide where you want to go. And then they help along the journey to get there. So, in the research and learning about all these different countries, that's when it became more solidified for us that Mexico would be a better fit for us because we're close enough to family, close time zone, and yet culturally really resonates with us. So through there, they had shared with us about getting residency and how certain areas, consulates, are not as friendly. It'll vary in the United States. So the process is, just so those that don't know, when you're getting your residency for Mexico, you have to start at a consulate within the United States. And in our case, we went through economic solvency. So we had to furnish, because we're looking at retiring, a year's worth of our documents. And then we also had to show, certain criteria. And then that has to be approved within the United States. Once that is approved, then we have 6 months to go to Mexico. Once we get there, we have 30 days to finish the process. And you're actually going and finalizing that information. So a lot of people use a facilitator because that last portion has to be done all in Spanish. Unless you're fluent in Spanish, hiring a facilitator is a good move. So in looking at it, we had heard that California can be difficult just because of the sheer numbers of people, and really, consulates, they're not just there for getting residency. In fact, that's low on their list. Quite frankly, it's helping those Mexican citizens that have their various needs. And in California, I think because of the population, they're quite busy with those other things. So even when I tried to reach out to some of the consulates, I often didn't get a response or an email back. Different consulates have different ways. So here you can't just show up. You have to have an appointment. And I just never could get an appointment here. But I had heard that there are certain consulates within the United States that are very friendly towards, or not friendly, but are more amenable to helping secure those appointments. And Las Vegas being one of them. So that's when we had scheduled to reach out to Las Vegas. And I actually go up there for business pretty frequently. I tried to schedule, but I had some questions that I wanted answered. And through email, it felt like we were having a disconnect. So when I went in January of last year to Vegas for a business trip, I thought I'll just go ahead and stop by the consulate and see if I can ask my questions and get it clarified and show some of my documentation, etc. So I was able to do that.
In person.
Yes. So I met with the person there and just asked him my questions. I had the paperwork. I had a question about the marriage certificate coming as a married couple, because sometimes if a woman's name is not, I've changed my name from my maiden name. And I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be an issue the way that it has come up, because I've heard that is an issue for some, and was able to get that all clarified, and very friendly, very receptive, and that was not an issue.
And this is all still in Las Vegas?
That is in Vegas, yes.
Okay.
And then I tried to see, like, can I just schedule an appointment? And he says, no, you have to go through email. Even though I was with him in person, I couldn't schedule. So I said, okay, so if I go out to my car and send you an email, then you'll schedule it. He said, yeah.
And he was very, very friendly, right?
Very friendly, very, very
That's
helpful.
what you told me.
Yeah, yeah. So that's exactly what I did. I went out to my car, sent him an email, and by that evening, he'd acknowledged it and scheduled for us to meet on March 12th.
In March. No, it was January this year, not last year, but January this year.
Okay.
January 20th, actually.
Yeah. Wow.
So interesting day. So fast forward, then we went back up.
How long before the time that you went in that day and sent an email, scheduled the appointment, and then you went in to see, how much time in between?
Went in and requested it on January 20th and then on March 12th. So,
Wow. Almost two months.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty fast from what I've
Yeah.
heard from others.
Was the email that you sent his personal email, or was it an email to the general
It was
consulate
to the general
offices?
consulate. Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Right. And yet he told me he was the one that answers all the emails.
Okay.
So, and sure enough, and then they sent me back all the criteria of what they wanted. I had already received that before, but he sent it to me again. That can change year to year. And so since it was January, I think they were just making sure that I still had the more recent information. And we made sure that we had everything. And even that could be kind of challenging, because one of the things that was most challenging about that process is that a lot of for residency as a retiree, we showed our 401k, and we used the Charles Schwab. And in that particular case, what's challenging about that is they require a signed letter saying that this is what we have in our account from someone in Charles Schwab. But it being such a large organization, getting that signed document was really, really challenging. And it has to be within 30 days prior to our appointment. So and then we have a broker, so we couldn't even just go direct to Schwab. We had to go through our broker that had to then request it, and then the documents came, and then they came and they verified the information, but none of them were signed. So then we had to do it over. We did it about 3 times before we actually got what we needed. And it wasn't an actual signature. It was kind of like a inked signature. But in any case, we had that done. And I mean, our broker was almost beside themselves because they kept asking for the information and getting wrong information. But nevertheless, we did it. We had all of our documents, everything lined out the way, just exactly like the consulate told us that we needed to do. And we went to our appointment in March. And that's when all the fun began.
Yeah, we'll get into that right in a second. But I did want to ask you, besides the financial backup documents that you needed from Charles Schwab, what else was requested?
So they wanted, let's see, copies of our passport. We brought our marriage certificate, although it's not a requirement, but we wanted to have it just because we had that, and our birth certificates so that it could verify our name, first and last name, against our marriage certificate. We actually did register individually, not as a married couple. We could have done it as a married couple, but it just is another step. So we did it as individually because financially it was there. We debated whether we would request temporary or permanent. Because we're not 60 yet, we had heard that some consulates will deny you for permanency if you're not at the age 60, or if you're not showing that you're already, say, collecting Social Security or something like that. We just didn't want to
have any roadblocks.
Right, have any roadblocks. We could have, but we just thought we'll just go ahead for temporary, just to make sure
Get the
that
process
we're in
started,
to get it going.
And did they require all of your United States official documents to be apostilled? And did you have to provide originals and copies?
So no, it did not have to be apostilled, but it did have to be the original. And yes, we did bring 2 copies of every document, especially for our 401k because it had to be a year. I mean, it was like a stack like this because it's every statement, every page, and then two
Oh,
sets
wow. Okay.
of everything. We had that. I think those were the main documents that we had.
Okay, so now it's March, what, 12th, you said?
Yes.
You're in Las Vegas. You go to your interview.
We had a great time in Vegas, and
Right.
and that was actually the last thing that we did was to take care of this.
So while I had a lot of information about the economic solvency requirements, I found very little information about the interview process. So we got there, we were excited, we waited. And I think, David, you've always said that you always felt like there was
Yeah,
just a difference in the air.
Yeah, well, just the fact that we went into the consulate and everybody spoke Spanish, and that was kind of intimidating, especially since we didn't know the language. We kind of stuck out like sore thumbs. But and again, it's just because I'm an empath type of person, I can kind of I feel energy, and it was just kind of a tension there, for some reason, like I wasn't weren't supposed to be there. So I didn't know what that was about. I just kind of felt that kind of energy. And I know at the time, the political climate was a little weird in the United States. So I'm like, well, maybe that had something to do with it. So I just felt, again, just kind of an energy. But we, put on a happy face and, just knowing that this is just the next step for us to get this taken care of. So, kind of put the feelings aside and the discomfort and just continue to press forward.
So yes, so that all said, we were waiting, and maybe part of us just being nervous about the process. Who knows? But so we went, and we were called in, and I admittedly too, I felt it just felt like a different
Different
vibe
than your first experience.
than from my first experience. Much more serious tone, and anyway, but I think it's just our climate of where we are at this point in time. So we definitely felt a difference.
I mean, definitely going back to March, that was a tense moment in time.
Right. Correct. So we went in and we met with the person that was there, and she asked us for our passports. So we sent it over, and then she asked us why we wanted to come to Mexico. And we told her that, we love the culture, we love the people, and just a little bit about my heritage and all of that.
Now, keep in mind, she wasn't looking at us. She was looking at our passports, asking these questions. And that's what kind of threw me off a little bit as well, because she wouldn't look at us. She's just looking down and asking questions as she's looking at our passport. So
the body language.
We're not sure if she's listening. We're not sure if she's even, it just felt like it wasn't very engaging.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a situation. And keep in mind too, so our passport only had our stamps from Spain from the year before, because our previous passport had expired and we replaced them out and only had our newest passport. So the only stamps that were in there were from Spain. We didn't think to bring or didn't even have our previous passport. So like David was saying, when we're talking to her, she's not looking up at us. She's just looking strictly at the passport. And then she said, well, I don't see any stamps for Mexico. And so we're like, well, yeah, we've been there. She says, well, where have you gone in Mexico? And because, we live in Southern California. So I said, we've been to Rosarito, we've gone. She says, well, I don't see any stamps for that. I'm like, well, they don't check it when we cross the border.
Oh, yeah. We told her for a honeymoon we had gone to.
We'd gone for a honeymoon. She says, well, that was obvious. She looked at her marriage certificate. That was a long time ago. And then she said, she didn't like that we said that we went there without a stamp. But quite frankly, people cross back and forth. And honestly, as ignorant as it sounds, we didn't know that we needed to have it to go back and forth. But, she says, have you ever flown in there? And said, well, the Mexico City was a long time ago. And I don't even think we had to show passports in, quite honestly. It was such a long time ago. So she said, well, I tell you what. We're just, and this is maybe all this conversation, maybe about a whole 5 minutes. She said, I just tell you what, we're not going to be able to approve you.
We had all our paperwork. She didn't even ask for our paperwork.
No. She said, where things are right now, we want to make sure that you really know and appreciate Mexico. we don't want to approve anybody that hasn't been there recently.
She said, if you maybe come back after you've taken a few trips, what city did you guys want to live in? And we had to kind of talk to her about maybe some potential places that we like. Well, go there a couple of times and then come back.
Wow. She said, it's nothing personal. Let me just share with you an example. She said, we had someone come in. She's Chinese. She went to
Canada.
She came here seeking a residency, and she had just been the week before in Canada getting residency there and got approved, and it hadn't even gotten her cards yet and was already here.
She had asked her, you just got a passport in Canada. Why are you getting a passport here in Mexico? And the lady said, because I wanted some options. And then she said, Mexico is not an option.
Okay.
Wow.
So she said, I can just tell you right now that the consulate is not going to approve this. They've not been approving if you haven't been recently to Mexico. And so, well, we've been there. We just don't have the thing. And I said, well, it doesn't say anything about that in the rules. And she said, well, the consulate can make their own decisions. So
Yeah, that's very true. That's something about the Mexican consulates. The way the system is set up right now is you can go to one consulate, they'll give you a list of requirements, or they'll approve or deny you based on certain
Criteria
things.
that they have. Yeah.
And then you'll go to another consulate and you'll get a whole other experience. And you
We were
just never know.
blindsided. This was not what we expected. It's not the experience that Rosalyn had when she had that first interaction. I was blindsided because I was like, wait, this doesn't sound like what you had went through in January.
yeah, so it was just really kind of discouraging.
So, she did when Rosalyn asked, well, can you at least look at our paperwork? This is as we're about to walk out of the door. She's like, okay, I'll take a look at it. And she's flipping. Yep, that's good. That's good.
She said everything qualifies.
everything-
You'll be fine.
just
You
come
have
back.
to go back a few times, and maybe about 6 more months. She said, we answered all your emails, correct? And I said, yes, you did. And she said, yeah, just give it like 6 more months. Go a couple times, spend some extra time more recently. Make sure you get your stamps and come back, and then you should be approved.
Yeah, amazing.
I know, right? Stab to the heart.
So what at that moment in time, what were you feeling, and what kept your perseverance to continue with this journey?
Yeah, so quite honestly, I think both of us were a little bit in shock and then also really discouraged.
Disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed mostly because we feel like we have a good grasp on Mexican culture. We live in, Southern California. There's a lot of Mexican culture here, and we've been part of that, and we really appreciate the cultures. But that's just kind of the way we are, is we don't necessarily take no for an answer. Just because someone says no, okay, that's their opinion. And also just trying to understand, like, where is she coming from?
That's, and we kind of understood, at the time, the way things were going in the world at that time, we can kind of appreciate it. And again, this is just an opinion, but it's like, if you guys are going to shut your border we're going to shut ours too.
Right.
Yeah.
So we again, it was disappointing and it was frustrating, but we also tried to be a little more empathetic as well at that time. It was just an interesting time when we went in. So it's like, okay, this is just one little shut door, but they're going to be open doors elsewhere. So we're not going to stop at this shut door. And that's when she kicked into further research mode.
So then after that, like I said, I mean, and I started thinking about it, and I wouldn't want anybody coming to my country that just feels like it's an
option.
Right. No.
And yet we're like, we know who we are, and we don't see it that way.
We're serious. We really want to be residents. We really want this to be, a place that we can hang our hat and do our retirement. We're serious about this. This wasn't just an option.
Right.
You guys are planning to, once you make the move, to move here and live here full time or go back and forth?
Right. Well, we feel like in our initial years,
because our family is here,
it's probably more back and forth.
Yeah.
With the ultimate goal to move.
Be in Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. I mean, if I were doing the interview, I would have approved you right away, but.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's what happened when we found.
Right. So when we were actually, the very next day, I actually happened to go back and just was watching again with this other group, Exodus Summit, and they were announcing that they were having a meeting just in 2 more days where they were going to talk about. At the time, there were several members of the group that were able to get residency through what do they call the
The
RNS?
R&E program.
Right, correct. And so they were sharing about that and then just sharing about the facilitator that helped them and that it looked like it might be closing soon. So they wanted to hurry up and get this going. By the time we
Right.
met 2 days later, actually, Mexico had actually closed that off. So
Yeah.
that option was not there. But the facilitator that they had worked with to do that the week before was there to talk about the whole process. And in that call, I shared with her that our experience, and she said that she was starting to hear some rumblings about that Las Vegas was starting to turn people down. And she told me, but don't be discouraged, no worries. There's other places. And she was very familiar with what was going on in San Diego and said that we might want to consider that. So that's really what started our journey, and we set up a separate consultation with that facilitator. I actually had heard there was other facilitators in the San Diego area, and so she kind of gave us a little bit more guidance, helped us to understand kind of the interview process, et cetera, and then just shared with us, it just helped us along the way to get an appointment in terms of what we needed to do to get an appointment in San Diego. So from that point in March, we were able to just take her advice, and then we were able to get an appointment for May. And part of that time frame, it could have possibly been sooner, except that just my husband's schedule with work at this time didn't really enable him to do that. San Diego operates a little differently. So when you try to schedule with them, they only open up about 2 weeks out from the time that you try to schedule. So you might try and then it's not available. And then you just got to try the next week. And, it's every week for the week or two after that. And you have to keep trying. And because we were looking for a specific date and time, it made it even more difficult. So we probably could have gotten a little bit sooner than what we did, but we weren't able to get our next appointment until May 5th.
May 5th. To apply for San Diego, you go to the Mexican consulate of San Diego website and do it directly through there. There's no email or anything. You have to go and see if there's an opening and take it if you see it.
No, it's through their consulate website. So that was interesting. And then unlike going to Las Vegas where we went together, we actually had to have 2 separate appointments. So David was first and then I was second. And so I put everything together. So I gave him the packet. He went in. They did not allow us in to the building
Together.
until I think it was 10 minutes before your appointment. So because my appointment was 20 minutes after his, I had to wait.
So I had to go into the consulate myself, and she was at a restaurant.
Okay.
And by the way, in that process, we kind of needed that extra time because that whole thing with Charles Schwab, we had to start over again.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
That was a challenge
But
also.
now you are experts.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And they still got it wrong the first time, but at least our broker was also an expert, and we worked together, and they were able to help us a lot tremendously to get what we needed. So we had all of that. He went in there, waited across the street at a little restaurant, and then you went through your process.
And I go in, and again, having somewhat healed from the scars of Las Vegas, it was great. But again, I had a different vibe when I went in San Diego. It seemed to be more welcoming. And again, I think maybe it's because situationally or culturally it was a little different than March, but it seemed a little more open, a little more accepting. They had me go upstairs to go through my interview, and the gentleman that had welcomed me, he'd asked for my information, passport, but he was actually looking at me as he was asking the questions. I'm like, yes, he
Big
actually
difference.
sees me. And he started asking for some of the documents, started stamping some things, and through the process, he's asking me these questions. Where I want to go, what made us decide we want to go to Mexico, and that type of thing. One of the questions he'd asked, about one of the cities that I'd asked, he said, well, have you been there before? And I'm like, no, but from what we had researched, it looked like it'd be a great place. And he said, well, how do you know you would like it? How do you know the people would accept you. And I looked at him and I told him, everybody accepts me. Okay, well, that won't even be an issue. Wherever I go, people are going to accept me. So he said, "Oh, okay," but he just seemed to be a little more open, and even there were some documents that were actually in the folder that Rosalind had put together for me. I couldn't find it, and I said, "Yeah, this is really, really important." So I said, "I know it's here, I just can't find it." And he said, "Well, we have to have it." So I said, "You know what? If you can give me a few minutes, I'm going to go downstairs and see if my wife has it." And he said, "Well, her meeting is coming up." Okay, well, I'll put this on hold until you get it. So I'm like, yes, he didn't shut me down, So I go downstairs and which he could have, and let Roz know, hey, there's some documents that they're asking I don't see. So she actually met me back downstairs and said, it's right here, goofball. So anyway, she didn't say goofball, but anyway, she showed me where it was, and we went back up there. And again, he was there waiting, and he went ahead and accepted it, and told me, well, this is all that we need here. And he said, if he's waiting in the lobby, we'll get back to you. So he was done with me, and then her appointment came up. But they had asked her different questions than they had asked me. So, like I said, it had to have been one Cinco de Mayo. Yay! The questions that were asked were ones that I was really prepared to answer, and likewise, the questions that they had asked her, she was prepared to ask,
Right,
to
right.
answer.
And I think that's really the key here is that we just didn't understand, they appreciate how much the interview process is going to be really critical. And I never had heard anybody really speak to the interview process when you go into the consulate. So what was different about this particular gentleman than the first time was it wasn't so much a strong interview. He was just having a nice conversation, but I was very alert to know that he was truly interviewing.
He was interviewing.
But he was doing it in a much more friendly, more natural manner. And so it didn't feel quite so intimidating. And he was not concerned about so much about when we had been to Mexico, what we had been there for. One of the things that the facilitator had told me was that by me going in and saying that we had gone into Mexico and back out, even though it was the truth and no one had asked us for our thing and we were there. And she was like, do you realize you were here in the country illegally? It's not a good thing to say.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I hadn't really thought about that. And, if the tables are turned, if we hear somebody's coming into the United States and they don't have their paperwork or whatever, and even if somebody didn't stop them, shouldn't we be making a point to stop? Like, would we not know enough to stop? So it's some of those things that it's like, that makes perfect sense to me. So I didn't repeat that again, that I had been there, but we do have friends that live there and that also live here in the States. They have a home in Mexico. They have a home here. That was one of the things that we forgot
Had shared with them.
that he had shared with them and I had shared with him separately. So I think that was part of it too, was that the reason why we were going separately. He asked some questions that were different and some that were the same. And I think that if we had differences in how we answered our questions, that would have been a red flag. But we were just telling the truth, so there was no differences, and so that part was fine. And so we were able to show our paperwork. It was very warm and accepting. And then we waited. Again, we were kind of the only gringos, there in the office. So, like David said, he says it half-heartedly, but we really do appreciate the people, the culture, et cetera. And just people are people, right? At the heart of it. There was quite a few people in there when we were waiting. And there was a woman with her daughter, maybe in high school or something. And then next to us on the other side, there was a gentleman, and he had a baby that was just an infant in a stroller. They were calling people up for different things. And then we noticed that they called him up, and this baby was just eyeing her dad, cooing and happy and smiling. And we're like, my goodness, that little baby loves her dad. And so we just made a comment when he was coming back about how enamored she is with him and that he must just be an excellent father. I mean, just how she was. And then the woman next to us started chiming in about it as well. And she noticed that also. And then we just started talking,
Yep, we started connecting with her and her daughter.
And it wasn't really, it wasn't anything we were trying to do. It's just
a conversation came in organically.
Yes, naturally
And
happened.
as we started talking about, each other, whatever, we started talking about why we're, looking to go to Mexico. And then she started giving us some tips. We started talking about our Spanish, and that's what really keyed it. We started talking about, how we're trying to learn Spanish. She said, "Yeah, do you listen to Spanish music?" And we started talking about Spanish music, and she started giving some tips on, how to listen to some Spanish music, to, catch some keywords. We started just talking about, multiple
Right.
subjects, food,
Family, I think, kicked it off.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we just really started keying in, and locking in, and just just some really good conversation with her and her high school daughter. So what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes passed, and we're just fully engaged in these conversations, laughing and all that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
we look around, and next thing we know, there's nobody else there except for this woman, her daughter, and us. And by that point, and they were calling us up for different pieces of information here and there. But in all, we were sitting there about 3 hours.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
three
That's a
hours.
long time.
At least you had somebody to talk to.
Yeah, no, it seemed
Yeah.
like time flew by
Yeah, it
just through
did.
our conversations.
I mean, to the
Yeah.
point that when we did finally get our card, we came back, we're like, we got
We
it,
got
we got our card. And I mean, not our card, but when we got our visa for the next step. We were showing we got our visa. Oh, that's the other thing. We had to bring photos. We had to bring photos. But then even though we brought our photos, then they still
Still
took
took
our
a
photos.
picture.
So we got our pictures taken, and they gave us back our passport and our visa. Our Mexican visa pass was in our passport for our temporary residency.
Was it glued on there? Was it attached on there?
It
Next to
is.
the yeah.
And that's the other thing. He asked us, why didn't we go for permanent?
Really?
That we could have. We thought, he said, no, you don't have, age isn't a thing. But because the paperwork was already filled out for temporary, we just had to keep it
Just
at
keep it,
temporary. So we just
Yeah.
kept it going. For
So
anybody
we
that's interested, the age thing is
Yeah.
a criteria. So all those things together, it all worked out. And when we
So,
we
you know,
had
we-
such a good conversation that we ended up hugging the
Yeah,
woman
we
and
got-
her
we got-
daughter.
'cause
We
she
were
said
all
when we-
celebrating.
we like, we got the visa, got the visa. She's like, yeah, she got, the lady was speaking with, she got excited. Everybody got excited. Her daughter got excited.
We're all
So,
doing a dance. In the
yeah,
office
so we're
there.
all hugging in the lobby, from this, from us getting the visa. And, we started thinking about, I was like, wait a minute. They probably have cameras, looking at us, having this
Yeah.
celebration in the lobby with
Right,
these
right,
folks.
right.
But
I mean, that's why I said maybe there were cameras everywhere, and you can't bring in your phone or camera, but they have cameras everywhere. And you thought, the consulate probably could just observe us and watch us and see how we interact. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that, I mean, and I don't know if that's true or not, but we're sitting here for 3 hours. We're on camera, obviously. You can there's probably all kinds of ways that they're determining, and I get it. You don't want just anybody coming
coming into
in
the country.
to the country,
Yeah,
and that
For
makes
sure.
sense.
Do you remember the precise numbers for the savings that you needed to have in your particular case to be approved?
So I don't have the precise numbers so I want to say for the savings, and we did the annual savings. So you had to have at least 73,000, I think, a year for temporary, and I want to say it was about 286 or something for the permanent.
Okay. I ask because that's also something that varies from consulate to consulate. And so I've
Right.
heard anything as low as 65 and as high as 75. So it's like San Diego might be kind of on the higher end, but if you can do it, they're at least
Friendly.
And then they also had a monthly criteria also, which
right.
was like anywhere from 4,500 a month for temporary or something around that, and then like 7,200 for permanent a month. That was another way, but it has to be money that you can show as guaranteed income every month. So we're both self-employed, so for us it was better to go with the annual savings.
Excellent. All right. So with your visa in hand, what did you do next?
We celebrated.
It was Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. Of course, it's not a Mexican really
Right,
celebration.
it's- yeah, right,
It's
but-
very much an
Right.
American thing.
But we
it was
tied
a
it
fun
together and celebrated. That was our, Cinco de Mayo was our emancipation to Mexico. So,
So we
Right,
went.
right.
across the street, and there was a taco shop that had just
Just
opened.
opened up.
So we
Authentic.
went and had tacos.
Nice.
San Diego has some good taco places I've seen on YouTube, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Yes. So we
But you're
celebrate.
not quite done though. You don't have your temporary visa card in hand. So what were the next steps that you did?
So from there, we were able to get in touch with the facilitator that we had talked with and shared with her that we were able to get our visa, our temporary visa. And again, like I shared before, we had 6 months to go. So in our case, we just had a lot of things going on, and we knew we were going to be traveling. Our son was graduating, and there was just a lot of things we were doing. So we had to schedule then for the next step, which was Kanye. So for us, the next point that we were able to do that was July 4th. And one of the things that we decided to do, because we live so close to Mexico, is we decided that it would be best for us to get our Kanye in Rosarito, because it's close here to the United States. In our case, and I don't know, some consulates feel like you should have your place already picked out, but we hadn't done that, and we feel like we're exploring. We know we want to move, we just don't know exactly where. So we decided that we would make Rosarito our place to start, and every year when you go back you have to renew in the same place. So we just figured from a practical standpoint that it made most sense for us to make Rosarito that place, and she represented that place as well. So we met up with her. We arranged to go 4th of July weekend. What was really nice in that case is she actually is we of course pay her for her services, but she was able to fill out all of the applications. She handles so many of the processes in Rosarito, so she knows the staff there. They all know her. So we just scheduled our meeting, and on July 5th, so it was actually we like fives. And we went ahead and we went down to Rosarito, and we drove there, met up with her on July 5th, and she had it all set up, all the paperwork. We essentially just had to meet her there. She went in, talked with the people, came out. We already knew what the fees would be just to get your Kanye, which this year was about $300 per person. And so we had to pay for that there. Really, it was the consulate, once we were approved there, it was pretty much done. It's just more so getting the paperwork and finally finalizing and getting your card and everything. And fortunately, with the Rosarito office, they're able to issue cards right there and then. So we were able to go down and complete the paperwork, sign there. They did a bioidentical pictures and fingerprints and all of that with us, and took our pictures, and we had our cards. And she told us it was going to take about 3 hours, and it took about just over an hour.
It was
Hey, not bad.
Great.
But even the instructions as we crossed the border, almost step by step, they told us what to do. And what was really significant is, that they shared before you cross the border, you go to the, I believe it's an immigration office before you cross the border, and it's
Right
off to it's right off to the side. So if you're, going down the border, if you don't make that right, you're going to miss it. You miss it just like that. So getting those specific instructions to make that right, because again, you don't notice the building if you're just driving through. But the fact that we had the instructions that you need to make a right, and just before you
Just
cross
after.
it, you need to make that right before you continue on. Make that right and visit that
Immigration.
office, that immigration office. So that's
And now,
exactly
is this the same? Is this the same immigration office that everybody that is crossing into Mexico needs to stop at in order to
Yes.
get their
Yeah, it's
visitor's
off to the
permit?
side, and you're going to miss it if you don't look
Right.
out for it.
Right. It's just an interesting thing, because as soon as we cross, everybody's going off to the left and straight into Mexico. And there's no checking or
Yes.
anything or registering. And yet we have been told, as soon as you cross, go to the right, because we have to get our, what is that called when you, right when you cross the
FMM.
and then it has to be for 30 days. It can't be for less. It has to be for 30 days. So we did get our FMM signed off, and we had to get our our visa, essentially that we were coming in with our FMM, because if we didn't have it, we could not complete our residency process. So it was really
And the
critical.
officer that helped us, he reaffirmed that. He was so informative. But yeah, he reaffirmed, that, yeah, you definitely want to have this. He gave us some instructions on how to operate in the city and what to look out for. So he was extremely helpful.
Right, right.
So when you met with him, did you open the passport up to the page that had your
Correct.
visa on? Okay, so he knew exactly what to do, give you
Right.
the
And
30
he,
days.
they wanted to know what was the purpose. Why are you coming to Mexico? And we told him we were there for temporary residency. And so then he said, yes, you need to have, so he gave us the FMM for the 30 days. And, we at least knew what to do coming into the country, that was important. And surprisingly, we were the only ones there. So, the thing about stopping in, many don't know that we're supposed to be stopping at
Yeah.
INM at the INM office, which is the immigration office for Mexico.
Yeah. No, this is interesting because just a couple of weeks ago, we had two separate couples that had arrived to San Miguel to go to the immigration office to complete their visa application process and get their visa. And what happened to them was when they landed at the airport.
In Mexico City.
We're both Mexico City?
Yeah, both of them were Mexico City arrivals.
They didn't share with the official there that what they were doing. And so the official just gave them a regular stamp.
No, true, they did. But then they inputted it into the computer as tourist. Or there was just something going on with the system itself that even if he did put in that they were there for Kanghe,
So there's nothing that they could have done.
there's nothing they could have done. It was
go.
just something that was happening in the system, and it happened to two guests 1 week apart. So it was a common issue.
We, again, along the way, they were very helpful.
Our facilitator.
Yeah, they were just, again, it was almost foolproof. If you follow what we tell you to do, then you'll get through this process, and that's what we experienced.
Right. And they told
That's
us
awesome.
that if you get to the office and you don't have this, it won't go through. So, yeah, they really prepared us for that. That was really helpful.
Well, congratulations, you guys. So now you've got your visa in hand, you're celebrating. What were some of the things that you wish you would have known in the very beginning that you could have applied then in order to make your experience go smoother, if any?
I think really for me in our situation, I wish I had understood the importance of the interview more. Put so much focus on making sure that we had all of our criteria, that economic solvency, but really didn't have much about the interview process, that was a big thing. The other thing is it was a little humbling, and I think that we should have been more humble about the process. Nobody owes us to go to
That's
Mexico.
It's not just a
point.
given.
Yeah, and I would never want anybody to feel that we were arrogant, thinking that we're entitled to it, because we're not.
And that's why there's no bitterness in Las Vegas, because we can
No.
appreciate, from their perspective, what was happening here. It was disappointing, but it was also a lesson that, you don't take this for granted. You're seeking permission to go into their country.
Correct.
So you need to come with a certain level of humility,
We're guests.
we're
and
guests.
We want to be gracious guests. We don't want to be arrogant or anything like that. And it is important, just if we were to have somebody come into our family, we would want to be protective about who that is that comes in. So we always want to come from that position. I think that we needed to be humbled.
Right. Learn the culture.
That's an important point.
Learn the culture, appreciate the culture, come with a kind of a learner's mindset. I really want to learn, the culture and how we live here. Just being open-minded and ready to receive.
Right.
Being flexible and being able to pivot and continue on, but not give up.
Not give up.
Yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
give
Most
up.
importantly.
Don't give up. And just because somebody says no doesn't mean that, that's their position, but it doesn't mean that that's the end all. So yes.
Would you suggest for anyone that's doing this, try to do it on their own like you did initially, or to go
Use a
or to
facilitator.
find a facilitator right away?
I don't know if we've been able to.
Well, I mean, it was helpful to have a facilitator, but here's the thing is for the consulate, the facilitators really cannot help you. It's a requirement. You have to go on your own for the consulate portion in the U.S. So, but it is helpful just to have someone from the facilitator process for her to explain to us what we would expect and why. It gave us a better understanding of why this is happening, what they're looking for, and what they want to know. So
We wouldn't
it
know
was
that on
helpful.
our own. We wouldn't know it on our own because it's all a mystery.
Our culture is not the Mexican culture. So the way that and that's one of the things I really appreciate about you all and your channel is that you share a lot. This is important to understand about the culture. We are guests in Mexico. We have to adapt. Mexico does not need to adapt to us. That's not the way it works. We are guests in Mexico. So we're immigrants. Just like in some ways, I felt like, my family lost our Spanish culture by moving to the US. They were right to acclimate to the US when they're in the US. And just as we look to go to Mexico, we need to adapt. I won't completely lose. We won't lose the English language,
Yeah, exactly.
and we still appreciate and have ties to the U.S. But adapting is important.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why kind of doors opened up for us is just our willingness to adapt, and they can see that, we really want to learn.
Yep.
We do have, an appreciation for this country and, we want to be a part of this and they can see that. So I think that's part of it as well is that, we demonstrated a real desire, to be a part of this culture.
Well, I think you have the right mindset, right? I mean, that's so important to acknowledge as you immigrate to a different country, anywhere, wherever that may be, is to be able to adapt to the local customs.
Which is what we talk about in our videos all the time, is adapting and being open-minded and flexible and learning and just taking it all in, not just coming with what you think it's going to be and what you want it to be.
Right.
Exactly.
Correct. Right.
And again, we are, of course, we're American and we don't lose that, but it doesn't mean that you become a part of the culture. You have to lose who you are. No, we're going to still be who we are, but what we want to do is expand it by learning and appreciating and embracing another culture.
Right? You guys, are you up for doing a quick lightning round?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
These are just three questions. Your answers should not be longer than 15 to 25 seconds. Just keep it nice and
And are
short.
you bouncing off of each of us, or how does this work?
Whoever wants to
However
answer.
you want to answer. All right, so here's number one. What's one tip for anyone who gets rejected at a consulate?
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
What's the biggest myth you discovered about the visa process?
I wouldn't say I had any understanding of the myth, but I will say that if you follow, the path of those who've been there before or people that have knowledge, the door is going to open for you. So it's kind of like the last question you asked is you don't give up.
Yeah.
But obviously the myth is that it's easy.
That's good.
That you know what to expect.
What made all the effort worth it in the end?
Getting our residency.
Yeah, that's a loaded question because
And we
there's
got to
so
meet
many
you
benefits.
guys. I mean, oh my gosh.
Do you really want us to like that question? We need a little more time than 15 seconds. But yeah, no, it's been nothing but an amazing benefit experience having, reached, this point in our journey. Amazing.
And what a future you have now.
Yeah.
What possibilities are in front of you? Endless
Yeah.
possibilities.
Yeah.
Mexico's a big country, so
Yeah.
you'll be able to explore it and embrace it.
Although we're a little selfish and we hope that you pick San Miguel because we would love to have you here.
We love San Miguel.
gosh.
You guys made it such a welcoming environment. I was telling a friend of mine the other day that you always hear that Mexico's dangerous. Mexico's dangerous. Honestly, since we've been back and all the things that are happening I feel like it's more dangerous here at times than it is.
I was
in
joking
Mexico.
to my brother. He's in Europe right now. enjoying his time in Europe, but I was telling him, we came back and now we're looking back at the border.
Like, can we go
I'm ready to go
back?
back. I'm ready to
Right,
go
right, right.
back. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
Again, it's not disparaging the country that I love. I love the United States, but this just opened our eyes to other experiences, and yeah.
Yeah, you made us feel so warm and welcome, and we really appreciate that. And just everyone that we met was so friendly. And, you hear all these things about safety, safety, safety. We had, family members, you're going to be okay going there and all of that. And we felt more than safe. And, again, coming to visit with you all, you make it so easy. You take away the friction. We didn't have to figure out things. You had transportation from the airport. And then, of course, staying at your beautiful bed and breakfast is just amazing. And then having, all the restaurants laid out, the places that we can go, helping us to make arrangements for tours, and just the flexibility that we had amongst people that we met with to share about their country, and it just was really
Well, we
wonderful.
can't say enough that it was great having your bed and breakfast as our headquarters to launch out to explore the city. You provided a place of comfort, a place of safety, a place of confidence, that we
Wow.
can go out and explore and know that we have a home base
You can
that
tell
we can
us
launch
what
out.
to do, where to go, how to, you understand our journey and our path, which is different from most, right? We're not just tourists there,
True.
scouting. So helping us in that process, someone that
Yeah.
understands that, that's been through it, that can guide us along the way, is so, so valuable. So thank
So
you
we
for that.
appreciate, oh my gosh, we
Yes.
appreciate.
Thank you so much, guys. We love your story because it's an example of how setbacks don't necessarily mean the end to your residency story. And look what you did. You persevered and you got your Mexican visa at the end of the day. So congratulations to you. We loved hosting you last week and we hope to see you again soon.
And we'll be back.
Oh no, we're going to
For
be
sure.
back.
So when you're coming back next week, we have a room for you. It's ready. Rosalyn and Dave, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think a lot of people listening will take comfort in knowing that even if you hit a roadblock at one consulate, it doesn't mean that the journey is over.
Your persistence really shows what's possible, and hopefully it gives others confidence to keep going.
And for anyone watching or listening who's preparing for their own move, remember that you don't have to figure it all out alone. We offer one-on-one consultations where we can walk you through the process step by step.
And if you'd like to get a feel for San Miguel, you can always stay with us at Antigua Capilla Boutique B&B. We love hosting people who are exploring life in Mexico.
Plus, we've put together a downloadable neighborhood guide that makes it easy to discover the different areas of San Miguel and find which one feels right for you.
All the links are in the description. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everybody.